love, love, love Kate Spade.
Oh, yeah. My mom got this for me for Christmas in my stocking. She just sold a stocking for us. Isn't that cute?
My mother-in-law also does stockings, and my mom.
I love stockings.
I am so obsessed with Kate Spade, and it's like the weirdest thing ever. Every client I've ever had has something Kate Spade.
Really?
And they like bring it to their consultation.
Do you like talk about it a lot on your Instagram or anything, or do they know beforehand?
I don't know if I talk a ton about Kate Spade. I think it's in my bio. I don't own like a Kate Spade bag. I used to.
Yeah.
I worked for Kate Spade like one college summer.
Yeah.
Because my across the street neighbor was like a general manager for the store. Oh, wow. And so got me a summer job there.
Wow.
And I was like, Dad, can I have one? And he's like, yes, if you buy your school supplies, I'll buy you, like with my 30% discount, a Kate Spade purse. That year I had to buy a TI-89 calculator. So I came out like horribly.
Oh my
like,
word.
which
I remember those things.
Yeah. And
dinosaur
do they even use those?
I have no idea.
And you could play Tetris on it. Remember that?
Yes.
And connect with the chords, and you could duo.
Those were a big deal. Was that for like 8th grade, or was it before that?
I don't know, calculus or.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you could do like, I don't know what you could do on it.
I just remember it was a big deal because they were so expensive and everyone was required to have one.
I just saw this post yesterday. And it was like, so glad I learned about parallelograms instead of taxes.
Oh my word.
It comes in handy during this parallelogram season.
Oh my goodness. There's a card. Have you ever played What Do You Meme, the game?
No.
There's a card that literally says almost that exact same thing, like a sarcastic comment about knowing how to find, the area of a parallelogram instead of something applicable to life. Yes.
Or like, this is the 10,396th day that I've gone without using algebra.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, don't count because that'll be a little depressing.
Oh, that's super depressing.
Oh,
but that's okay. We just have to find unique opportunities, like when children.
Yep.
Like, I'm going to do your homework with you so I can be like, damn, I knew it.
Exactly.
I knew the answer.
I remembered this little strategy.
And what if they don't even teach that anymore? Like, cursive is moot point.
That is moving out, yes.
I don't know. I don't know anyone who still learns cursive. I love cursive.
I know.
Hand calligraphy. That's a great industry to go into.
Yeah. I love that. I love those. I love looking at those accounts on Instagram.
And their videos. Mesmerizing.
I know. Yeah.
Oh, I love
that stuff
those.
Is so pretty.
We've virtually chatted before about important moments of a wedding day and of life, but I feel like there's just so many good bits in the posts that you post.
Yeah.
Besides stunning photography that totally speak to my soul because I like emotions and images.
Definitely.
Why is it taking us so long for us to be friends?
I don't know. I don't even remember how I found you, but I love that you can find other vendors on Instagram
and connect.
A lot of different people, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and you planned a destination, I'm going to call it a destination wedding, for yourself because
I did.
You were going to school in a different state than where you were planning your wedding.
Correct.
That's why I kind of feel like that's a little destination.
Maybe some of the same challenges, yeah.
Right, the same challenges. Okay, so let's talk about the challenges. Because I did something similar. I lived in Minnesota, but I was planning my wedding in Washington.
Okay,
so I'm from Washington, but guess what? In high school, I wasn't friends with a lot of wedding vendors.
Exactly. How young were you when you got married?
25.
Okay, so I was 22. I had just graduated from college. So I was planning when I was 21. So
right. And you just don't know
totally
the people.
Clueless.
And you don't know the things. You probably haven't even been to a lot of weddings in your life in general. Unless you have like a lot of family members that are 10 years older than you that are really close to you.
Right.
When you're in
probably
college.
Only a few. Yeah.
Yeah, only a few. So what I feel like there's so much that I think listeners will want to hear about, but what was like planning and being in school?
Definitely. So I'm from Minnesota, but I was going to school in Wheaton, Illinois. I went to Wheaton College, really close to downtown Chicago. And I actually got engaged there to my now husband came down to surprise me. And we got engaged, and then I stayed, and he came back here for school. And so I was literally there, just in school my senior year. I was lucky enough to have my mom helping me up here.
Right.
But we got married at Trellis in Stillwater. And then our reception was at the Lake Elm and Event Center. So, one of the first things you do is kind of look for venues. So that was hard because I couldn't see them. I was just basing it off of websites.
Go home and like cram.
Exactly.
planning.
Like I would go home for holiday break. So, Thanksgiving, Christmas. I remember I started like a physical binder of things
Yeah.
and I printed the knot checklist. Those existed back in 2010. Pinterest did not though.
Yes.
So that was probably good
So it's
because
like Googling images and then nothing
I
really
think
comes
so
up.
because I remember like copying and pasting them onto like a Word document and
Yes.
printing that off.
Same.
So yeah, that must be what I did. I knew a couple of things. Like I knew I wanted purple. I knew I wanted lilacs, which
Yeah.
ended up being kind of a disaster, and I was really kind of immature about it, and that's kind of a funny story too. But um, anyway, yeah. So I was in school, senior year. You're finishing up classes. You're trying to find jobs. I had been long distance from my then fiance for all 4 years. We had known each other before in high school, but it's still hard.
But I feel like long distance relationships, if you can do that at some point, it makes you such a stronger couple.
Yeah, we saw
And
that.
yes, like I was long distance, I think for 3 years with
Okay.
my 3 years, 2 years with
Yeah,
my husband. And I think that it really like proved to
right.
us that we liked each other and that we wanted to make it work. And then you get better about communication, right? Because you're not
Definitely.
always in each other's lives. You don't know what's going on.
Yeah, we really thought that it helped us both develop really good friendships with other people. Being apart because I think we would have been together all the time if we had been at the same
Yes.
school. And I even went and studied in Spain for a full semester. That was that was probably the hardest part, just because I was gone for like 4 months straight. But even that, it's sweet when you come home and it's fun. And so, yeah, but yeah, so I did plan most of it far away, and I had some bridesmaids with me, some bridesmaids in Minnesota. So I just remember like the whole fitting of the bridesmaid dress thing. That was kind of a tricky thing.
Like coordinating a time when they could all go.
Yeah, and I want to say we ended up going with David's Bridal. So luckily, that's a readily available place in Illinois
Right.
and Minnesota. So that part was a little bit easier. But yeah, no Pinterest. So a lot of my ideas, I think I would just maybe look at other weddings online. Magazines,
Too,
yep.
right?
Um,
Or from your photographer, did you look at the weddings that they had
yes.
shot? And
Yeah.
then you're like, oh
Even
yeah, I like
her.
that idea.
Yeah, I looked at her ideas. She was someone I knew from the church I went to growing up. And so, yeah, I'm just trying to think of I think magazines were probably a big part of it from the library. I just checked out a ton of magazines. So,
Yes, I
yeah.
was a scrapbooker,
Yes.
so I
Uh-huh.
did like get magazines and cut out things and
Perfect. Yeah, that
make
works.
a wonky collage.
That's like a physical version of Pinterest.
Pinterest,
So,
yes, much more
totally.
time consuming and
Yes.
expensive because
Mhm.
Pinterest is free.
Exactly. That's true.
After you got married and graduated, did you move immediately?
Yeah, so that was kind of crazy. So, my husband Alex and I were both looking for jobs here in the cities. And let's see, graduated in May, came home, and our wedding was in August. So, I had a couple of months physically here to finish up those last couple of wedding plans. But I think we both had jobs set up to start in September because I was a teacher. So, I had a
Yes,
teaching job lined
teacher.
up. But then, so this is a story for a whole different podcast. But my husband is actually grew up in Guatemala. He's half Guatemalan, half American. He grew up as a missionary kid in Guatemala. And I want to say something crazy, like 2 or 3 weeks before our wedding, we both got job offers in Guatemala, where his parents were still
Yes.
living at the time. So, and his was to play professional soccer for one of their teams, and mine was to teach at this very specific, really cool school, teach first grade, which was the grade that I wanted, and run an
Yes.
English academy. So it was just this super exciting offer, and we couldn't believe it. And so we said, "Oh my goodness, we're gonna change everything." So we planned to leave. So we had our wedding, had our honeymoon, came home, opened our presents, and about 2 weeks later, flew to Guatemala with like maybe a third of our wedding presents because it's expensive to bring all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was very, very quick, but very exciting. And so we lived in Guatemala only for about 10 months before my husband got a different job offer. But that was, like I said, that is kind of a
Crazy.
crazy story. Yes.
Yes.
So that was different. And, we learned a lot. I had been to Guatemala before and knew a lot about it. And I even spoke Spanish, but it was really hard for me. mostly culturally, just the differences between here and there. It was very different living there, like just day to day,
Than visiting.
than visiting.
Also, I'm now married and I have to live with
Yes.
this
Yes.
person that actually I haven't lived with before.
Exactly.
And I haven't interacted on a consistent basis day to day.
Right.
Like the regular stuff like breakfast, cleaning,
Yes.
getting to places.
Exactly.
You hadn't done any or managed that yet.
Right. And I'm someone who likes things planned and controlled and on time. And what happened was, to make a long story short, both of the jobs we were offered were somewhat of a scam. So a couple months after getting there, we both were without a job. And honestly, like it couldn't have been in a better place. Guatemala is a very community, family focused, supportive type of place. Whereas, of course, in the States, we would have been supported as well. But our culture was much more individualistic than Guatemala. And, Alex's family was there and it was totally fine. But for me, just like raring to go out of college, ready to start my life and work, it was devastating. So it was hard to adjust to that. But yeah.
And when you have this, like when you're younger, you have this like can-do attitude, like invincibility. Nothing's going to go wrong or be wrong. And I'm the smartest and best
pretty much
in the world.
Yeah.
So then to be like, oh, just kidding. I'm out of a job and newly married.
Yeah.
And what am I going to do with my life? This kind of weight coming down on you when really
exactly.
It's like, no, it's okay.
Yeah.
You're only a fifth of the way through your life.
Yes. And everything's not over.
And things change so quickly too. I think when you're younger, you think, oh, it's going to be forever until this happens or that happens. And there's so much life in between those big goals.
Definitely. Yeah, it's definitely true.
Okay, so from Guatemala, you moved again as a new couple.
We did. So from Guatemala, we moved back here for the summer because my husband was offered a job in Texas that was on a school schedule. So he got a job as a graduate assistant in Texas at Laterno University. So he worked as the assistant soccer coach and got his master's while I taught down there. So that was a different adventure. That was for a couple of years. And then eventually we made our way back home up here to Minnesota. So
that's a lot of moving.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
And like kind of managing that with being newly married.
Definitely. Yeah, and lots of challenges, but.
And then since you've been back in Minnesota, baby number 1, baby number 2.
Yes, exactly. So let's see. So as of right now, we've been married for 7.5 years. We had baby number 1 after I had been teaching about a year and a half here at my absolute dream job. It took a couple of different teaching jobs for me to find my perfect place, but I was teaching in Minnetonka Spanish immersion kindergarten, which I absolutely loved. It was a blast. I hope to get back there someday. But what I should mention though, my photography business I actually started when we lived in Guatemala because it was kind of this untapped market, and my husband was the AD at the school he grew up at, a K through 12 school, and everyone needed senior pictures, and there was kind of this one guy in town that everyone went to. So he actually got me like a DSLR kit with some of our wedding money. And that's kind of how I started. And it was a great, very low pressure way to start.
Right.
Because up here, the market is extremely saturated. And you have to, right. And then, this is again, like almost 8 years ago, but still it was a great way to start. So that was cool too.
About that saturation, I always think it's like a little bit funny when people are like, oh, this is my photographer. Have you heard of them? And I'm like,
yes.
And it's like their name is like 2 first names.
Yeah.
It's like their name's Sarah Jane. I'm like, okay, Sarah Jane Winter. And they're like, no. I'm like, okay.
There are a lot of us. Definitely.
Yes. So I think but that is just to the benefit of brides and grooms looking for a photographer that fits their personality, that's going to give them the package that makes sense to them for their budget and for their needs on the day of their wedding.
Very much so.
And just this huge like banner or scream, like, don't hire someone you don't like.
Right.
There's so many options.
That's disastrous.
Yeah, there's just so many options. So to just settle on a photographer, I think, is so silly. And
definitely,
since you've listened to this podcast, then like you're not going to settle on a photographer. Right. So tell everyone who hasn't listened to listen.
Exactly. Yes.
So let's talk about this freebie that you've got. I'll just let you explain all of it.
So I have a freebie that I launched a couple months ago. It's just called 11 Best Tips for Stress-Free Wedding Photos. And I actually thought of doing it for a couple of reasons. I I'm a teacher and I loved school growing up, so I'm a huge nerd. I'm sitting here with my 5 different pens that I brought for no reason to take notes right now, right? But I take notes after every wedding, even sometimes after just an
Same.
engagement session, because even if it's something that I've learned before, I'll notice it just happens in a different way because of the couple, because of the mother of the groom, because of the groom's. I mean, just there's so many moving factors in a wedding day that I just constantly want to learn how to deal even better than I did in the moment with all the things that happen.
And
so,
how to educate couples on how to do that for themselves in case they don't hire you. So free information to make your life better.
Right. And, I try so hard to communicate all these little things to clients beforehand and really prepare them. We joke about contracts a lot because nobody likes to read contracts anymore.
Oh, please read your contract.
Oh, they're so important. But I kind of have accepted that. I make a lot of jokes about it beforehand. I go over the contract with my couples. I mentioned the really key things verbally, probably 3 or 4 times.
Right. These are my hours. I'm not available outside of them. These are my hours.
It's just hard to remember. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of these brides are booking 9 months plus in advance.
Right.
I don't remember what I told them 9 months ago at Caribou. And I shouldn't expect them to. So anyway, all that to say about the notes is, I just try to write down everything that I learned. So what I did was I kind of consolidated I picked the number 11 just to be a little different, I guess. But the 11 top things I thought could be very generic in a positive way. Like this could apply to almost any bride, no matter the budget, any wedding. But the most important thing, and this is also super dorky, but it's important to me. On the second page, before the tips even start, I put sort of a disclaimer because, by no means am I an expert. By no means am I wanting to step on any other photographer's toes if they would ever disagree. So I said, really important, just make sure, even if you read through these tips, most photographers are going to agree that these help a lot, no matter what the situation. But please, 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 if someone is downloading this and I am not their photographer, your best bet is always you talk to your photographer,
right?
Talk to your wedding planner, talk to your wedding florist, because it's hard. Like these brides are getting all these amazing ideas from Pinterest or even like other people's blogs, and they kind of assume it will apply to them too, and it doesn't.
Right.
So the people that know your wedding day the best are the people you hired. So just because you find this awesome tip sheet online, including mine, it might not apply to your wedding.
I think that's super fair. I totally disagree. I think you are an expert. But I think that, yes, a lot of times brides and grooms are finding information and they're like, well, I'm going to do it this way because this is what this article said. And then they find a vendor, and that vendor might actually be a cranky vendor. And then they're saying, like, no, why would you ever follow that advice? Well, just take it with a grain of salt. Some people do things a very specific way. Yep. And I think that we can both agree that photographers have kind of like little irks.
Definitely.
Things that they're like, I've been burned before on this, and so I'm not going to let you do this.
Exactly.
And maybe that's, there's a lot of issues with copywriting. So who actually owns the images?
Yep.
And couples don't realize I can't just post this picture of our first look to Instagram and add a filter because I don't own the image.
Right.
And so I'm not allowed to alter the image.
Right.
And maybe your photographer is going to be like, whatever, it's fine because you're not selling it. But legally, you don't own that image. So you can't make a print and then sell it. You know, like there's just these little things that you don't know as a bride and groom that maybe your photographer or vendor is going to be really cranky about.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm going on this long tangent.
No,
I just feel like copyright is a really big thing.
Right. And, filters are really fun. Everyone's just used to using them.
Yes.
It's just fun. You just tap different things. It can look kind of vintagey.
I guess.
But it's hard. If they don't get that, it's not a personal thing. But, I know photographers who care a lot about it and who have kind of let it go.
Right.
So it's really tricky. So, yeah, just be sensitive to it if you happen to hear these types of things about any vendor.
Right.
Just ask them and hopefully they'll be open to kind of explain it.
But general tips. What's your favorite
Oh man, I'm just looking through.
What's
Yeah.
your favorite one? 11 best tips for stress-free
Let me
wedding
see.
photos. I love that word, stress-free. That's a big part of my
Yes.
business because I feel like planning a wedding is super stressful.
Yes.
And you can tell the difference between a wedding photo where the bride and groom are completely calm and happy and
Oh
excited,
boy.
and
Yes.
one where I is just like, yeah, but my uncle's in a wheelchair. Is anyone helping my uncle? My uncle needs help. He's in a wheelchair. And you're like, that's over there. You are doing your
I
first
know.
look.
Yep.
So
You know, along that line, so my first tip is probably one that makes the most people squirm the most, and it's about Pinterest. And I wrote an article about it on my blog, kind of the FAQ section, and I really hope that it's clear and that no one ever thinks that I am against Pinterest, because just open my Pinterest and you'll see that I've pinned thousands of things.
yes.
But it's like you said, I think a few minutes ago, it's because I've been burned. Not me specifically. I just, in this circumstance, I did exactly what the bride asked me to do, and it was okay. It was just so different than probably what usually jives with me well. So we just weren't a very good maybe fit together.
Yeah.
It was a few years ago too. But so what she had done, and it was my fault, I hadn't talked to her about Pinterest. It was kind of a newer thing. She was an extremely gifted, I think she was maybe an executive. And so she had planned this wedding to the T,
Right.
down to every detail. But the problem was that no one had sat down with her and explained them. When she's saving all of these images on Pinterest, a photographer can look at your boards and say, oh, wow, like this bride's actually kind of pinned like 3 different styles. Like, and so I always give this ridiculous example, but it's ridiculous to make people laugh and kind of reveal the why you have to be careful. My husband and I got married. We had a brunch wedding, right? So like we weren't around at sunset.
Yes.
If you have a brunch wedding,
yes,
you can't have a sunset photo silhouetted against this
Right.
beautiful peach sky.
Right.
Right. And it sounds silly, and but people don't think of that. They see all these beautiful things and they think, I want this.
If it doesn't rain on your wedding, you can't have clear
Exactly.
umbrella pictures with
Yep.
rain.
So, and this has happened a couple times actually, but some brides get so excited about Pinterest that they save these lists and they give them to me.
Shot list.
Yep, and that's like generally okay, but I prefer to, I guess, look through the Pinterest boards with them, ask why they like the photos, because what they don't realize is if you want me to replicate this exactly, which a couple of them have wanted that, it doesn't look quite as real because it's not, right? So if you're like, I want my husband's left hand on my cheek and I want to be looking away, and I also want wind so that my dress goes up. Well, of course, the photo that you see is beautiful, but that photographer, that was a windy day, and she or he was probably directing
And maybe
them.
the groom is often touching the bride's face, so they're used to it, and it's not awkward, and it doesn't look like weird, like Will Ferrell mannequin hands, right? Where you're like, honey, I love you, and you're like, stop, you have a hangnail, stop touching me.
So, and the reason I said it might make people squirm is because I think in this PDF I say, I would love to hear 5 to 10 must-have images that are like exactly replicated.
Yeah.
But beyond that, so this specifically has only happened once, but sometimes when brides have those really long lists, one bride too, and again, she just didn't know. It was honestly like pure like lack. I hadn't known to explain it to her, but I think because of iPhones and, well, not just iPhones, any smartphone camera now, everyone's used to instant photos. So in her mind, for some reason, my role wasn't any different than if I had been following her around with a phone out there. So she would keep asking me, did you get it? Did you get it? Okay. And the next one is this one. Okay. So let's set it up. Did you get it? But what you don't realize is that photographers take a lot of time to set things up, and we actually move you into poses and out of them. And
also,
oftentimes,
why would you want to spend your day? It's not a photo shoot. It's a wedding.
Right.
What's important?
Right.
Getting the shot or getting enjoyment
exactly
for your life?
Well, and that's the thing is that to me, I felt like they weren't really having a lot of fun during pictures, but she was, it was really important to her to get these very specific shots. And so that's what I did.
Not my ideal client.
Yep. Exactly. So that's the thing. It's like, okay, I think that everyone really wants authentic images. It's just a matter of maybe educating them beforehand and like explaining, I want to show how much he loves you and how much you love him.
I don't want to make it happen.
Yeah,
though.
like
It'll
it's
just
okay
happen
if you like these
organically.
beautiful things on Pinterest, but
Yeah.
you can trust me a little bit and
Yeah.
I'll help you look like that.
I think I have this somewhere as part of my client process is I say, okay, let's make a list of all the family photos. Because that is an opportunity where you can be
Yes.
like, I need to get these shots. And then let's make our timeline around that. And then let's communicate to those people so that they are showing up when they need to so you can actually capture those pictures.
Exactly.
And so I love that you've only had this experience one time. I've had it multiple times where brides have a really, really, really long shot list and
Okay.
or they're confused about what a shot list should look like. So usually there's a really long family photo list and they are like, okay, I'm figuring a minute per picture. And so then they're like, well, then this looks like 45 minutes of pictures. And then Josie is like, it's not a minute per picture. It's more like 15 seconds or less.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll move it really swiftly as long as everyone's there. And then I kind of reorganize it in a way that
Right.
either I know their family dynamics a little bit or I just know what works usually best. And then if me and the photographer can take team family
yeah.
photos, then they are slick. And not that you want to just rush through life, but you don't want to spend the bulk of your time doing family photos. It really brings you down because no one pays attention well. And then for some reason you get like really possessive and take ownership of the fact that your family aren't good listeners
Yep.
during family
for the
photo
bride
time.
and groom.
Yes.
Oh, they get the most agitated during
The
family
most.
photos, and then
The
you just feel
most.
badly, like,
Mom,
oh,
mom,
it's
mom.
okay, like,
Yes.
you know, just it's okay. Yeah,
Like we actually got that shot. We can move on. But for details and all that kind of shot list that you really gain inspiration from Pinterest for,
right.
I think that there are two ways to go about it. One is giving up control over the shot list, and the other one is giving up control over the shot list.
Right.
Like, just give it up. So I said the same thing twice on purpose because I think you can have this list of things that are important, but no, any good photographer is going to capture your ceremony, is
Right.
going to capture your first look, is going to capture cake cutting. What you should be more concerned with is having a great timeline that allows time for that and then
Right.
communication for when those things happen.
Yep.
This is like totally my jam. Like I'm getting
yeah.
really amped up about timelines right now.
I know. Oh, good, because me too.
So like, in the morning, it's like if you have gifts that you want to give your bridesmaids and you want to get a group shot in your robes and then you want to get a picture of you getting into your dress and then a picture of you giving your mom a gift. Okay.
Yep.
So those are the things that you're going
and
to have
that is
happen.
totally fine.
So let's put it in the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's think, okay, everyone needs to be in what outfit for their gift opening picture?
Right.
Okay, you want them in their matching robes. Awesome. Everyone needs to have hair and makeup done before we can do that gift opening picture.
Yep.
Because $10 on Betsy not wanting a picture without her hair did.
And then
She's
we're
not
all
gonna be
behind.
happy. So,
Yep.
so you all have to have hair and makeup done before you can start those pictures.
Right.
If you actually care about them or want to find value in them. And
Yep.
then everyone's going to get dressed first before you get dressed.
Yep, exactly.
And mom needs to be dressed before you give her the gift.
That's
and
a
mom
tip
needs
to
to have hair and makeup
Mama
done.
Bear. Yep.
Yes, think
She
about
needs
your
to
mom.
know, are you in the background of me putting my dress on? Oh, I do want my earrings. I do want my full dress on. Or
Yes.
maybe I want to look like I'm still getting ready. I want my pretty robe that you got me.
Yes.
Well, either way, just
She
tell
probably
her,
wants hair and
you
makeup
know,
done.
like she might be floating around
Yes.
setting up tables if she, she could be doing anything to help out last minute. But yes, and I should have clarified for the Pinterest tip that I have. I see the most, not issue, but difficulty when they have dozens and dozens of photos chosen ahead of time of the couple.
Yes.
Those details like, I'm giving my bridesmaids this really special necklace that means this. Of course, I would love to know about that. And like you said, if you've got enough time planned,
Yeah.
it happens naturally very easily. I literally gravitate towards that kind
And
of
that's
stuff.
why working with a professional photographer and a
Yes.
wedding planner can really help make that seem seamless behind the scenes, and you don't need to think about it. It's
Right.
just this happening. And then you get
Exactly.
your pictures and you're like, holy crap, like look at all this stuff that I spent time and money on, and
Right.
now I have it captured because the day was such a whirlwind.
Right.
But going back to like the couple pictures, that's great. You want a ton of couple pictures. That's great. You want sunset or
Yep.
golden hour pictures. Talk with your photographer and say like, where would said golden hour
Right.
pictures happen, and then prepare yourself for if there is not enough time for it. So if something happened and your ceremony started later and your cocktail hour was shorter, then you're going to need still time for those things that got pushed back or skipped. And then what if it's overcast?
Exactly.
There's no sunset when
I'll
it's
also
overcast.
always check in with the DJ and make sure, because this is the thing is that I'm finding it's good and bad because a lot of vendors are now making timelines. I feel like it's like, wedding planner and photographer always make a timeline. But now I'm coming into other vendors making them, which is awesome because we all want the best for the bride and groom. But I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this poor bride and groom, now they have 8 timelines.
Right.
I don't want them to have to sit down and be like, okay, well, this one says 8:35 and this one says 8:40. So, I mean, most of the time they don't, and then that's what causes the problem. But I check in with the vendors before the event, especially the DJ, regarding the golden hour photos because maybe they've asked him for like table shots.
Something.
Right when the sun's going down, you know?
Right.
So, and it's so funny too, going back to the family photos that you mentioned that because that is another tip that I have. And you're right, family photos, out of all the different types of pictures you take on the day, those are very straightforward. They're just groups
They're
and
easy.
we want to document them because this is who was there. We love each other.
Yep.
Like,
find a good shady spot.
Yeah.
Gather
exactly.
everyone. Bada bing, bada boom.
And so one of my tips is quote unquote ready for photos. Means that your family and your bridal party are in their full attire, hair and makeup done, bouquets in hand,
boutonnieres,
corsages, boutonnieres. If there are kiddos in your bridal party, we try to get their photos taken care of first.
Yep.
Goldfish, gummy bears, bathroom breaks, pre-photos goes a long way. So, and most people have never gotten married before if they're in their 20s or 30s, so they don't know this stuff.
Right.
So hopefully that's helpful. So
no, I think that's totally helpful. And another thing about family photos, that's like, for me, that's like the most fun because I can be really bossy. But having a shot list and organizing it like spouse one and your immediate family that you just want by yourself with those people, and then with your spouse to be, and then extended family, and then spouse two, the immediate family photos, and then extended.
Right.
And if you want them together or separate, sometimes you just want a picture with your mom and dad and you don't want your husband in them. That's fine.
Right, whatever
but
you want.
You probably also want your husband in them. And then I always say ask your moms what pictures are important to them, because that's the worst when you're done with photos and then mom's like, wait, we didn't get a cousin's picture. And you're like, Mom,
and
we're
later
done.
on at night, if she wants an extended side photo, that's another DJ way you can
incorporate your
have
DJs
your vendors working together, is they will work much better if they all know about it and they can work together. Okay, so you want golden hour photos and you want to do table shots and you want your dance to start at this time and you want your photographer to be here when you do your bouquet toss and you want 3 different extended family shots that mom requested. Okay, so here's how that looks.
Right. And table shots, you mean like the bride and groom, or the groom and groom, their bride and bride, go around to each table and take a picture with the people sitting at that table.
Very fun, but I've seen it done really well and really poorly.
Yes.
And so, just make sure you tell everyone, hey, I really want to get table shots. How can we do this? What's the timing like? And DJ, can you,
make an announcement,
right?
Or having an impartial third person like me being like, okay, quick, and being a little bossy and turn like, quick, like, nope, you don't get to talk to these people. You have to go to the next table, and then you can come back. Because otherwise, that's what you mean by done poorly.
Oh goodness!
Is they're about on their 3rd table, and then Aunt Florence is like, but I have to talk to you.
Oh, exactly. And, people like DJs and wedding planners and photographers, but mostly you two, know things like, if you start serving the cake and mention coffee, people leave their tables. Do you really want to go back to 6 different tables that are all over the place because the people weren't there when you got? No. So what I mean is, when I saw it done really well, a friend of mine does this so awesome. His name is Jason. He actually makes a really big deal of it, but he makes it go extremely quickly. He puts on a song, announces it, makes a big deal, says, be creative with your table. Think of a theme almost. As soon as the bride and groom get there, you're going to take a photo. The photographer is going to be running after. And people get so into it when it's like this upbeat music. And then, we only have 3 minutes. Okay, so it's great. Like, and then it's also done really quickly, but really well. Yeah. So it's kind of fun.
I just remembered, since we're like all over the place, back to family photos.
Yes.
It is really helpful when you make that list of all the people to not just put grandma, but put grandma's name. And if there's more than one,
Yep.
maybe you have two Grandma Dorises, put like what name they go by.
Right, because we don't know their faces.
No idea. I had, and I make fun of Marvin. I don't make fun of you, but I talk about Marvin all the time. That at him and Eloise's wedding, half of his family did not speak English, and so I just would be like, like, okay, we're doing extended family, and
Right.
like at one point Marvin was like, Josie, this is like my close family friends, not my family, and I was like, Marvin, I don't know who
There's
your
no
family
way.
is.
Right. There's no way for us to know exactly.
And they
Yeah.
don't know what I'm saying, or I don't know what they're saying. I don't
Right.
know. Yeah.
Yeah. About a week or two before the wedding, I have a final consult with couples, and I write down everyone's name, even the
Yep.
bridal party.
Yep. It's just helpful.
Yeah.
And then also, I think that's where you can really implement a personal attendant
Yes.
who is really close family friends. Like my best friend Ellie, I know her entire family, and so if I were her personal attendant, which I won't be, I'll be her wedding planner, duh. But I would know everyone and their name,
Right.
and that is inherently more useful
Right.
to say like, "Where's Uncle Peter?" Okay, I know what Uncle Peter looks
Oh,
like.
he's
I'll
walking
run
away.
and grab
Go
him.
get him. Right.
Yeah.
He's going to the bathroom, but he's only needed
Yeah.
in this one photo.
Yes.
Come back, please, really
Yes,
quick.
because Josie walking into the men's room being like, "Uncle Peter, are you in here?" is much more intrusive.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Yes.
I think that is all great. I can't wait for listeners to snag that freebie, which I will include in the show notes. This is episode
Awesome.
014.
Great.
And I just want to talk about too, you also offer Skype consultations.
I do.
And that makes it a ton easier for people who live remotely or not in Minnesota.
Definitely.
So kind of talk about that process and
Yeah.
how that came about you offering.
Right. So, I generally like to meet with couples in person, of course. It's just, you can get to know someone a bit better in person. So, no matter what type of consult, there's absolutely no pressure. It's really me bringing a lot of things for you to look through, like the wedding album, a wedding contract. And then I go through a list of questions with couples to find out what's really important to them. Kind of a long list, actually, just to talk through their wedding and get excited, but then also determine how many hours of coverage they might need.
Right.
But the reason with the Skype consultation is just because, it's been, if someone's just feeling sick and doesn't want to come out, especially in winter, that's totally an option. But yeah, again, if they're planning their wedding remotely, even if they're like still in school, kind of like how I was. Yeah, but it's really easy. I think Skype is almost better than phone too, just because you can see their face and their facial expressions and just read body language, and that's helpful too if they've never met you in person. So.
I didn't meet with Marvin and Eloise before their wedding. I Skype called them.
Oh yeah.
Well, I did meet with them once, but before they booked me, so that was
Sure.
nice.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about albums. And
Definitely.
do you use like a company online? Do you make your own? Like, I feel like brides and
Yes.
grooms don't know anything about albums,
Yeah.
so let's kind of talk about that.
Sure. So once your wedding is over, if you have chosen a package that includes an album, what you'll do is there's two options. Either you can have me select the photos, or you can select them yourself, and I kind of give different guidelines to help it look good once you've
So
selected
it's
your
not
photos.
just ring photo, ring photo, ring photo, ring photo.
Yes, or I think the tendency is to pick way too many, so it looks
way too many.
kind of collagey, like a photo album, like the kind that you just put literal photos into
Yes.
instead of a kind of a fine art
The
coffee
other
table
thing
book.
to think about when you, and I think this is true also when couples are thinking like, okay, we're going to pick this photographer because we get more pictures back, is that when you get multiples of the same picture, meaning like here's your first look and here's 50 pictures of your first look, it dilutes a little bit the quality, because instead of those pictures standing out, they kind of blend together.
Right.
So you're looking at them and you're like, oh, first look. It's
Exactly.
different. You can't make a video. You can't make pictures
Right.
video. So if the fewer, sometimes the better, because then you're like, oh, this is
definitely.
the best picture of our first look.
Yes.
This is the best picture of our bridal party.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a coffee table book. It's a really, really high end, heavy, talking like 5 to 7 pound book that you get an album. So I send like some different guidelines of, make sure you pick no more than this many photos,
Mhm.
try to get a sampling of each part of the day, horizontal, vertical, different things. I would say half and half. Half of the brides want to pick them themselves, and half are like, it kind of stresses me out. I'll never be able to narrow it down. Please do it for us. Either way, though, once you pick, I design the album with software on my computer, and then I show them proofs of each spread
love
or
that.
page. Right, so they can say, oh, you know what?
I hate
That
this
lady in
picture
that
of me.
candid, I'm actually not that close to
Oh,
her. Can you put
yes.
one of my grandma because she's really sick now and I want her? You know, and
Oh.
it's things that I wouldn't know. But of course, so we do a couple of different revisions and then it's finalized. And then I use a company called Pro DPI, they're a professional photo lab to print the album. And yeah, they're really awesome. And I bring them to the consultation so you can take a look. I also made a video that I'm still kind of editing, just kind of basically me flipping through the pages of one that I just designed and kind of explaining each aspect. And then, of course, you can leaf through 2 different sample ones at your consultation. So
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's maybe an important aspect that gets overlooked because you're like, oh, we're done with our wedding. We're done with everything wedding. And it's like, no, 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 no. Wait, if you find any value in a wedding album, don't
Right.
use up all your energy. Save a little bit for that
Right.
process. But then also, I wanted to ask you when it comes to albums, train of thought
Oh, no.
just
Pitter
pattered out.
Yeah.
La la la. I have no idea.
Well, I was going to say, so you do, with my packages, you do get your digital files as well. And so that I think is most important to people, just that they have them.
On a zip drive, or do you use like
They can
online?
download them from the website, but I also send a flash drive. So they have both.
That's nice.
Yes, but, you know, a lot of photographers and actually other industry professionals really push for printing photos too. And, you know, an album is a version of printing, of course. But I think it would surprise people how little they look at digital files. Unless you import all, you know, 1,500 final images from your wedding into your iPhoto and make I mean, I can say it for myself because I rarely look at my wedding photos on they were CDs. That's dating me, but CDs from 2010. You know, it's just it's weird, but I think we just know they're there, so we never look at them.
Agreed.
Again, hoping that you're back. I do send a little sheet saying, you know, officially these are your responsibility. Of course, I keep them for years and years, but officially, I want you to back them up. I want you to do this because think about how you would feel if, you know, God forbid anything would happen, if your house would be on fire or something would happen. I keep my hard drives in fireproof safes of everyone's wedding photos, but
so many photos.
Oh my goodness, right. But an album, it's like, okay, we have at least one thing. You know, I haven't gotten to prints, haven't gotten to my gallery wall, you know, until 6 years later, and I'm redoing my decorations. But I have this album, and people love looking at it when they come over, and
right.
You know, yeah. So it's nice to have something concrete.
And I feel like there's something to be said for something you can touch and feel. I remember what I was going to say, which is timeline. So I know it can vary big time, especially if you got married in October this last year, which everyone got married in October this last year.
It's crazy.
This year, I feel it's like May, June, October are the popular months, at least in the Midwest. What is the turnaround time that a couple could realistically expect for photos and for an album, and any tips on like let's get our album done motivation?
Yes. So I think photographers really range on the photo completion part.
It'll say in their contract.
It will say in their contract. So just, you know, if it's helpful for you, I do remind my couples, but it's like before their wedding, they're not really interested in thinking about that.
Yeah.
So, you know, I do remind them, but just you can always glance back at your contract. Hopefully your photographer gave you maybe a concrete physical version, and it's probably in your email too, a copy. But so I usually do about a 6-week turnaround for all the wedding images online to be edited and ready, which means they're in a password protected site. You know, grandma, mom, they can start ordering prints if they want. And also bride and groom are looking through like every single detailed photo. Before then, I've done like a sneak peek and most likely a blog post that can see, you know, a little sampling of their day. But the album, in order to speed that up, honestly, it does go quicker when I do it because it is really hard for people to pick photos. Right.
Yeah.
So,
and
if
you can just go through and like do the initial, they have veto power over any images. So really they're not giving up any like control or creative.
Exactly. Right. So if you allow me to choose the photos, I choose them, and then again, so I send you proofs of each spread. They're called, when your album is spread open, 2 pages. So you can say, oh yeah, like I actually like this first look photo better. And this one of me and my dad. Otherwise, I love it. And that's so much quicker than,
Yeah.
it's hard to narrow down your own photos. So
I think that's a great point too about the online image gallery that maybe brides and grooms aren't aware of, that most photographers, if not like 90%, 99%, use an online gallery for their images,
yes.
of which you can share the link and password with people in your family.
Yes.
And they can order prints directly off of there. So let's say your mom is like, I really want those family photos for a Christmas card
Yes.
or whatever. They can order prints off of there and then like mail it to grandma, mail it
Exactly.
to grandpa.
And every photographer does this differently. So just know that. But some photographers will allow the couple to download images directly to their computer. Some will allow anyone given the link. So like if, the
Right.
bride wants to give her mom. I do find it easier. Again, it just depends on your photographer. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of different ways to do it. I have recently allowed anyone the bride and groom gives the password to download the photos.
Yeah.
I've already released a release to the couple saying, if you want to print these at place A, B, or C, the color is going to be different and it's going to be a little darker or a little bit wonky, but it just depends. Like I had a scrapbooker once, a bride who was a scrapbooker, and it didn't make sense for her to order 500 prints from me at a certain price. It just wasn't
You're
really
nice. That's what you're saying. You're nice.
Yeah. Like for me at that point, the album's really important. And I say, if you want to pick if you want some prints for your wall, I would definitely recommend ordering through me. Just the quality. Or large prints.
For sure.
Yes. But it's up to the bride and groom. So also it helps if there are 15 wedding party members and 2 moms and 3 grandmas saying, I really want this photo. Can you send me this photo? Send me the photo. Send me the photo. They can just download it directly.
Yes.
And then they don't have to wait for their flash drive to come in the mail and then email this photo. And then, they're such high resolution, so they're really big. So the only 2, so I just cut that out. That's just me personally. But, every photographer is different. So
yeah, some photographers are a little more protective of their images, and they don't want them just being blasted on social media, which I think is silly, but they are concerned about getting credit for the images.
Yep, and there are places that I go weekly that aren't known for printing high quality photos.
Right.
But if someone wants 2 photos from your wedding, that's okay. I mean, yeah, it's I guess it's just me personally, some things I've had to let go of, and as long as the bride and groom know, and they usually do order a few 8x10s from me, and so I know those are gonna look really good.
Yeah,
in
their
your
house.
room,
Yeah.
so yeah.
And so then wedding's done. Maybe you give a sneak peek photo, and then you blog. So why should couples be interested in the blog portion of a wedding vendor's website?
Definitely.
I know why they should be interested in mine because it's free wedding planning tips.
Yes.
But photographers usually blog, and then maybe a few other vendors sprinkled here and there.
Right.
Blog.
So blogs to me are very personal and involved, and most people that I know put a lot of time into, especially the writing. But a blog is just a more thorough look at the wedding day. You see usually the highlight reel or sneak peeks on Facebook and Instagram, which is awesome. And then if you check out different people's blog, I think there's just a lot of love and energy put into it. So I try to include more of the story of the day, maybe highlight some really awesome things this bride chose to do.
And their vendors.
And their vendors. Yes, a huge vendor list.
Right?
Like, oh, I love those flowers. I wonder, here's a link to that florist.
Here's the exact person that I know for sure can do that bouquet for my wedding.
Yes. So that's
Granted,
huge.
I'm in a area that they live in.
Exactly. Yes, that's true. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else I was going to mention about blogging. For photographers too, I've seen tips actually on Pinterest and I'm not sure who writes these tips. Some of them are really good. Some of them are
generic and definitely from someone who doesn't work in weddings.
Yes. I've seen, that's one of the problems is that I've seen a tip be to basically write out a step-by-step list, a shot list, but also what your photographer should be doing all day kind of list. I'm like, oh.
But you're not telling your caterer what they should do all day. You're not telling your
anyone
stationer,
else, right?
what they should do all
Right.
day. Yeah.
One of the tips that I saw once was just to ask your photographer if they would be willing to show a full gallery. So that's an option too. You know, a blog is going to be pretty thorough. They're going to include much more of the storyline of the day. You can see a lot of images at once. But if you're really interested in a photographer, it will never hurt to ask to say, hey, like I would love to see a whole wedding start to finish. Is that a possibility? You know, and of course, you know, the photographer, I mean, most of us do client galleries online
Right.
of the
So you
full
can just give
wedding.
them access.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, of course, they'll have made sure it's okay with that couple, but most couples
Right.
are fine with that. Just, you know, I'd love to see, especially like the dance start to finish. I saw
Mm.
10 awesome photos of the dance at Bear Path, but I'm getting married there and I'm wondering about like this lighting. Do you have more photos of the dance that I could see? And I'm sure like the majority of photographers will be happy to show
Right.
more final images.
I would
So,
say like two huge caveats to that. One, dance photos. That's
yes.
awesome. You want to capture your dance in with photos. For why? Like just to
Yes.
look at, because you are a typical bride, right? You don't look at your wedding photos. Most
Right.
brides won't like spend an hour every day revisiting their
No.
wedding photos. So I understand 100% the want to capture those moments, but do you want 100 photos of that? And if you do want a lot of coverage, maybe think about video, because that is going to come alive way more, and you're not going to
Right.
be as weirded out by the contrast of lighting
Yep.
from like, hey, we're getting ready, it's bright and airy, hey, our
Mhm.
ceremony, hey, our dinner, and then now it's really dark and there's purple lighting
Right.
for our dance. You know, when you're looking at your photos, you're going to feel weird about that
Right.
because you're not used to looking at it. And then the other thing that you were saying about, seeing the whole gallery of a
Mhm.
wedding. If you are a couple who has a large concern in seeing the full gallery, then I think you are also a couple who has a high, puts a lot of value in photography, and
Yep.
therefore your budget should reflect that.
Yes.
So if you really care about seeing the full gallery and about it adapting to what you're looking for, please expand your budget.
Yes.
Like more than 3,000.
That's a tricky topic, but I agree. Yes.
Because if that's
definitely.
important to you, like you're telling yourself right there, if you want to see the full gallery, that that's important to you.
Right.
And things that are important to you, you should invest in more
Right.
in life in general.
Definitely.
So just don't kid
Definitely.
yourself.
Yes, that's
Don't
very
say,
true.
don't say, can I see your full gallery and do you have discounts? That shouldn't be in the same paragraph.
Yes. Yeah, and I feel like they kind of go in little groups or little pairs. You know, if you really value a certain type of dance photo, it's important to be educated of like, okay, in this photo, this is what I love that the photographer did.
Yes.
But they also paid for really fancy uplighting.
Yes.
And they paid for
And they didn't have a large dance floor, so people were actually on the dance floor. And
Right.
they had a good DJ, so people were actually on the dance
oh,
floor.
so many things that go together that you need to consider.
Right.
You can't, I mean, we want to give you everything you want, but you can't have all the things for
Without
an amount that
appropriate
doesn't match.
preparation.
Right.
Yeah. So
right.
let's talk about that hours of coverage,
Yeah.
because I think that when brides and grooms are planning out their day, they're thinking, okay, well, we really want to capture dance photos, so we need you there for at least 2 hours of dancing. And we really only want to spend what is your 8-hour package. So does that mean you're going to miss our first look?
Right. So, you know, and this helps just having done this for now almost 8 years. I have a lot of examples to show people. I have a lot of great anecdotes. I have my
Of
work
timelines.
of timelines, everything. I have all sorts of little stories of, you know, if this happens, then this will happen. So I don't have, you know, I feel like when you're just starting out, this is a lot harder to navigate. But once you get a little bit of authority in the business, it's a lot easier to explain to
Second
couples.
nature.
Right, exactly. But, you know, for the dance, that's a tricky part. I would say more couples than I expect do
Mhm.
understand that they don't need me there for the
18
whole
hours.
dance. Right, right.
Or the whole dance, yes.
Yes, I ask a couple of key questions during that consult that really helps me know, like, do you love those prep photos? Do you want me, like, versus the dance? Is there one end of the day you care more about? You know, in your standard wedding, I would say if everything else is completed, like golden hour photos and table shots and all the extended family, once the dance starts, I would say 45 minutes to an hour is a great amount of time for me to capture your first dance, mother, son, father, daughter, anything else special you plan. Maybe you want to play that shoe game that's super fun. And then a lot of candids of your guests. But if there's nothing else after that, no bouquet toss, no
Right,
garter toss,
right.
it's all really the same. If you want to do the anniversary dance, of course, I would love to capture that. It's super cute when the grandparents are left over, But I ask all those questions to know, how long do I really need to be at your dance? Because at this point, the evening is going to stay pretty much
Right.
the same.
You're paying me to get pictures of
Exactly.
people chewing with their mouth open, drunk people, and crazy chicken dance photos, which is fine, but maybe there's only so many of those that you even want captured.
Exactly.
And I think that forcing a photographer to stay longer, well, what are you going to do? Just sit there? No, because then people are judging you that you're not taking pictures.
Exactly.
So you're going to take pictures, and then it's going to take longer for you to edit.
Yes,
because you're going to have to go sift through more photos.
Yeah, and that doesn't happen a ton to me. Maybe just because I'm so used to explaining what usually happens at dances, and people usually tend to get it.
They get it.
I don't have a ton of garter or bouquet toss anymore. A lot of people will say, "Oh, that's fine. I think it's going to be at like midnight, so my friend can just take a picture." They don't care as much about getting a beautifully lit, high quality photo of.
And it's not going to be, because it's a dance, unless you want to flip on all the lights for your bouquet toss.
Exactly. So that isn't generally a huge thing. I would say for the packages, again, this is something that you would need to talk to your specific photographer about, or your wedding planner. But I mean, if I had to give an answer, I would say 8 hours of coverage is your standard. I don't want to say bare bones, because that is enough for some people. If you're staying at the same venue all day and you're doing a first look and a couple of other factors are there, 8 hours will suffice. But I have a lot of brides who are like me, like very detail oriented, love the planning aspect. They've pulled out all the stops. They want, like, I had a bride who did, a first look, but also a first look with her dad, a dress reveal with her bridesmaids. She had mimosas, she had robes, all these beautiful things. And so we needed 11 hours. She also wanted a sparkler send off at the end. We did table shots at her reception. Again, that was at 2 venues as well, and it was a Friday. But she was awesome because she totally understood that all these amazing things she planned took time, and she respected me, and she respected photography, and she wanted the best. So she knew, 11 hours is a long day, but
and they can't be crammed together. That's the other thing.
Right.
I feel like my sweet spot for the weddings I do is 10 hours for the photographer. So we usually are there around the same time, sometimes 9. So let's just give like a sample timeline.
Sure.
I feel like couples are like not able to envision this.
Right.
And me and you, like,
do this all the time.
I can picture this.
Yes.
So I usually like to start, and I'm sure you do too, with the ceremony, because usually we'll set your ceremony start time like kind of right away. So let's say it's a 5 o'clock ceremony, and let's say you are opting to do a first look.
Yep.
So from there, I would do family photos at 4.
Yes.
Not a large extended family, just the basic. So maybe 30 minutes tops.
Sure.
And then you have time to hide.
Yes, and that depends a little bit on your venue. I say 30 to 45 for hiding, because sometimes churches want you in hiding a really long time. Sometimes it depends on where you're taking the photos.
Right.
If they don't want the guests to see you. But
And then you have to think about where your guest's going to be during that time that you are hiding, but they can't hide with you because it's like your aunt and uncle and cousin.
Right.
So maybe like 4, maybe like you've already started family photos with your immediate family because they're going to be there. Your parents are going to be there all day, your siblings likely. Bridal party pictures start at 3.
Yep. I just kind of work backwards just like that.
So it'll be like an hour. First look then would be at 2.
Yep.
If you are going off site, then you're going to want to buffer a little bit more time. Like if you're like, let's go to the falls. Okay. It takes time to get there and to get back and to get
park.
set up. You're not going to park, jump out of your car, and immediately start taking pictures. You're going to like want to warm up and feel comfortable. There's some logistics with getting set for the first look so you don't see each other before that moment that gets captured. So let's say like 2 o'clock. Or is that where I'm at?
I think so.
And then you're going to want to be dressed in ample time. So you're going to want to be fully dressed, like I'd say 30 minutes before your first look.
That is
because
great
you
for
need
us.
you need a buffer. And so if you're getting dressed, you are dressed 30 minutes before your first look, then you need to start getting dressed 30 minutes before that, which means your hair and makeup have to be done.
And consider your dress.
Yes.
Does it have, 75 buttonholes in the back, get a crochet hook, get those things,
Yes. I always
but-
have my emergency bobby pin.
Yes, yes. Yeah, definitely all things to consider, and who do you want around you when you're getting on your dress?
Right.
What is it going to look like? One of my tips, I think, is just to have your bridesmaids help you clear the background.
Yes.
I can't tell you. I think
Oh.
Jimmy John's is the most popular thing to have.
And
Jimmy
the
John's
ugliest.
wrappers. Yes.
Or half drunk champagne
Yes.
mimosa glasses
Um,
with lipstick
dress-
stains on them.
dress garment plastic bags.
With ugly
icky
plastic hangers.
Yes.
Underwear and Spanx on the floor.
Mhm.
That's often.
Steamers, all sorts of things.
Half-eaten sandwiches, though. That is the most common. Yes. So getting ready, and like we said before, you are going to be the last one to get dressed.
Mhm.
So everyone else needs to be ready before you. You don't necessarily want to save your hair and makeup for last. I think that's not the best.
Yeah, that tends to be a little
strategy.
risky.
But that being said, so you're going to sit around and just enjoy and soak up the moment while everyone else is finished with hair and makeup,
Yep.
getting dressed, and then you get dressed.
Yes, that's a new
And-
thing I added is confirming with
Hair and makeup.
hair and makeup.
When's your start time? Oh, I don't know if that's enough time.
Right.
Did you know first look is this time? And I'd like to take pictures of her getting into her dress at this
Yes.
time.
And the problem is if the photographers get there
Yeah.
and things are already behind,
Yes. Photographers
we are
get
in a
blamed.
real pickle. And it's like, and I've had it happen a couple times, and I'm thinking to myself, okay,
How do I avoid that?
I don't want the bride to know because that will stress her out.
Super.
I want all the bridesmaids to know. So I will kind of come in and make a comment and, introduce myself and talk about what time the first look is to kind of alert everyone in the room.
Yes.
But then if it really becomes a problem, I'm thinking, I had one a couple years ago that everything was pushed about an hour and a half back because of
Yep.
there wasn't good communication.
Yep. Or good
And
plan.
so I thought, wow, like all day I'm going to be catching up
behind
with this.
and running
this is
and
hard.
hurrying and sweating and hungry
Yes.
and
I
trying
don't
to
want the
put on a
bride to
good
know
face.
because I want her to feel that she loves her hair and makeup.
Yep.
But then, yeah, that's tricky. Once we get there, it's not to be negative about it, but it's kind of too late.
Yes.
If I get there
to
and your
salvage.
hair and makeup isn't done and I'm supposed to start, or, however
Right.
we've planned it out.
And if the reception room isn't set yet, there's nothing really you can
Exactly.
do in the meantime. I think, too, I'm the same way. Like, I'll kind of go in and I'll be like, okay, where are we at with timing? Okay, so that's not quite on time, but that's okay because I've left buffers. And then if it kind of gets dire, I'll just flat out be like, here's the deal. Like, we are going to have to cut something from your shot list unless we move right now.
Right.
And then usually everyone's like, fuck, we have to give her everything she wants. Like, put
Yeah.
on clothes,
Yep.
clean up, and then that
Yeah.
kind of kicks everyone's butts into gear.
And if I don't have a planner, that is really hard when there's not a planner
then
or a
it's
day
on
of.
you.
But I do also ask the bride ahead of time who is the
Yes.
bossiest,
Yep.
one who knows you the best, whatever kind of person you want. Maybe you don't want your mom, maybe you do. Maybe you want your maid of honor, maybe you want your cousin. I don't know. Maybe
Right.
there's a person. Who can I pull aside and say, here's the deal. Her hair should have been done 30 minutes ago.
Right.
How would your cousin, your whatever, this bride, how would be the best way to handle it? Will she get freaked out if we say that,
Mm-hmm.
because they will be able
Usually no.
to get everyone else in gear.
And they've been there the whole morning, so they can feel the
Right.
vibe. Like, if you mention the L word one more time, she's going to blow her top.
Yeah, or she's already upset about this, so don't. Exactly. So that's good to have a go-to person.
That knows you really well.
Yeah.
I think also along those lines of what we're talking about, it's important that listeners know I'm not blaming hair and makeup for being late or
no.
behind. There's
my
so many
goodness.
little things that come up like,
Right.
oh, you cut your hair and I didn't know. So now our style is going to be a little different or more difficult. Or like this bridesmaid's hair is so dirty. Like I have to use half my
Right.
bottle of dry shampoo. And so
Right.
that's kind of pushing us behind or changing the timing or
Well, and
whatever
some-
it might be. Little things just come up. Or maybe like you're talking a ton while you're getting your makeup done.
Exactly.
Guess what? Like your makeup artist is probably the sweetest soul in the world. And she's not going to be like, shut up.
Yeah.
I have to put on your mascara
right.
and I'm going to poke you in the eye.
Well, and it could be too. Maybe hair and makeup confirmed with you earlier that week that they were going to be done at 1, and you have 30,000 things to do, and you just forgot to tell your photographer, and that's
Yep,
it. That's
timeline
all it was.
got changed. Yeah.
I mean, those mistakes happen all the time, and it's totally okay. When we get there, we're used to handling any kind of weird timing thing.
Yep.
It'll
And that's
all be
where
okay.
a professional and someone who has experience really like can make your wedding thrive
Yep.
and feel still seamless
Exactly.
even though you're behind. And I often like I try to emphasize like here's the timeline, but it's just a guideline. As long as the ceremony starts on time and dinner starts on time, I'm fine with any
Right.
tweaks or changes or alterations. So I feel like often my brides will be like, Josie, I know we're behind. And then I walk in,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't care. Like, why? We're fine. And they're like,
Right.
oh my gosh, okay. I thought you would be mad.
Yeah.
And it's like,
And they
no.
forget that you budgeted some cushion time.
Yes,
Every
yes.
single
A
every
little
single
cushion
category there's some cushion.
for last minute pee trips, for
Yep.
a water break, for a kid that's crying that
exactly.
is being normal.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that's the front end of the timeline. Let's just go for the back end just so
Sure.
everyone can get kind of idea.
Yes.
So if ceremony's at 5, most ceremonies are 15 minutes nowadays.
Yeah.
But 45 minutes to an hour if you have a religious ceremony.
True.
Or if you have little ceremonies in your ceremony.
Right.
Then you'll have about an hour for your cocktail hour.
Mm-hmm.
So you want your bar set at like 5:45 or way earlier if your
Yes.
ceremony doesn't go long.
And I always ask about a receiving line in case they're doing
or
that.
dismissing line. How are you going to greet and thank guests, which is an important part of a wedding tradition.
Very.
So cocktail hour for an hour, and then you're going to want to push seating maybe 15 minutes before the end of cocktail hour. So open the doors for wherever they're supposed to go.
Mhm.
Have ushers, have your planner, have banquet staff
Right.
say, sit the F down because you're going to get fed soon.
Yes.
Closing the
Please
bar
be
is
seated.
helpful. I feel like I get a lot of pushback from closing the bar, but honestly, if you can even just switch your bar from the cocktail hour area to your reception area, it really
Right.
helps people understand like we're no longer going to be in this space, we're going to be in this space.
Right.
And if you don't move into that
You have to
space,
corral
you're going to
them.
miss things. You're going to miss the welcome, you're going to miss the blessing, you're going to miss dinner, you're going to miss toast.
Or
you
they're
know?
gonna walk in right in front of the couple with their
Yes.
martini, or it's
Yes.
like, oh, well,
Congratulations.
you're right in front
and
of
it's
them.
like,
so
oh, this isn't about you.
how will I have a photo of them coming? Yeah, it's just hilarious.
Yeah, they do that weird duck. It's like,
Hey.
what are you ducking? Like, you're in the shot.
Yeah.
What are you ducking?
Yeah.
I'm not taking a picture from the chin up.
Oh,
Like,
I know, it's kind of goofy.
that's really goofy.
Yeah.
Yes. So let's say dinner is at 7. So everyone's going to be seated. You have to think about for your timeline and for communicating to your photographer those things I just mentioned.
Right.
Like if there's going to be some kind of greeting, if
Yep.
there are blessings, if you're doing a toast beforehand. Sometimes mothers of
Yes.
the groom, fathers of the groom will want to say a little something
Exactly.
beforehand, or vice versa. Like whoever, someone might want to say something. And then I said this in a previous episode, but I strongly believe in seating photographers and videographers at a table so they get fed with
Oh, that is
guests
awesome. Yes.
so that they can eat and be nourished and then ready and set
Yes.
for your toasts and for your first dance.
It is very helpful. One thing that's helpful is that, especially if I don't expect, of course, to be at a family table or anything, a
Can be
VIP
in the back
table.
by
I can be in the
myself,
back, yes.
but in the room.
But if I'm in the room, it's great. There was a venue that I will not name that had us seated on a different floor.
Yep.
And it would
You
be,
have
I
no
would
idea
hear a
what's
glass
going on.
clink and I would run like a chicken with its head cut off up 2 flights of stairs. I mean, it was just impossible.
Right.
I want to get a couple of those fun glass clinking shots of you two kissing if you're doing that. I don't need to get every one because they're usually
But
very
some.
similar. Right. And so, yeah, if we can be in the room, that's awesome.
Right. And
So-
at a table, I just think that's super polite. If you're doing buffet, then it's less of a thing that you need to think about because then
Yeah.
it's not as awkward. And I think probably catering cares less or they just don't notice. You can just go through the line
Right.
at any moment after the head table and family members do. But still thinking about is that vendor going to stand in the corner and eat
Right.
off their plate?
And no matter what, I feel like I always feel self-conscious eating, but yes, it is like a really long day for us. We've been
Yeah.
working really hard. Even like our brain is working a mile a minute or way faster than that.
Right.
And so if you think about it, at a lot of consultations, I talk about how the photographers often like to, if it's possible, eat somewhat soon after the bridal party because number one, nobody wants or needs pictures of themselves eating. It's the perfect time. We probably eat for 10, 15 minutes and then
Right.
we're up and around. We're getting, cute candids of kids that are,
And if you have them for 8+ hours, I feel like not because you're independent contractors, so it's different. But like if you worked a job for 8+ hours, you would expect a lunch break.
right.
And photographers don't really have a lunch break. They might have a time where they're not by the bride and the groom. And so you just assume they're not taking pictures. No. Your
They're
guests
doing
are going to be
about
very
10
forward
things.
and they're going to say, "Oh, you're the photographer. Can you just take a picture of me with my kids?"
Yep.
And they're going to be constantly doing things.
Or the really fun one is, did you get a picture of
Yeah.
A, B, C, D? Now,
And it's easier to just
I didn't
take it.
see you. It's just like, oh boy, okay. Yes, I did, but I'd be happy to take another.
Yes.
You have to be polite, of course. But it's just
Yes.
funny. The things that people say are so goofy sometimes. But
Yeah, they're rude, but that's okay.
yes,
They're not trying to be rude. They come
No.
from a loving,
they do.
over-controlling place.
They love the bride and groom. Yes.
Yes. So dinner and then first dances, I think, should start shortly after dessert. So even people aren't quite done.
Yeah.
I like when the couple walks into the reception room. They're announced, so that's a grand march if you're announced, and it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be your full party to be called a grand march.
Right.
So I like when they come in, maybe they cut their cake right away if they're having a cake, because then catering
Yes.
can cut your cake and have it ready to go for dinner right after dinner. And then I kind of like it when they do their first dance right away because everyone is watching.
I do too.
And there's just after dinner, people disperse. And if they don't give a shit about your first dance, they're not going to watch it.
Right.
They're going to find anything else to do
Yep.
but watch
It's true.
watch your first dance. So
It's
if
true.
it's really important to you, maybe have that moment. If your setup is like at Union Depot and you only have like 250 people, then
Right.
it's going to feel really expansive and people won't gather around the dance floor naturally because there's so much space to, spread out in.
Right.
So that's something to think about too. If it's too loud, people don't want to be by the dance floor for your first dance.
Yeah. But if
it's
they're
5
quiet
minutes
from watching
long,
you walk in, they're
Just
waiting
saying.
for you to do something.
I'm just saying.
Dance.
I know. Usually I mention that, and usually my brides are like, "Oh, I love that idea," and then the grooms are like, "That's weird. We're not doing that." Sorry, grooms,
Really?
called
That's
you
so
out.
funny.
And the same with
So
same
funny.
thing with a cake. They just want to do it traditionally. But like, awesome. Now you know something that your fiance really feels strongly about.
And
Like,
here's the
run
thing
with
about
that.
cake. Cake is tricky, although I find most brides and grooms don't care a ton about announcing their cake cutting.
Yes.
But the cake cutting is tricky for photographers because the cake is usually in like a corner. So there's
Poorly
one or
lit.
two angles for us to do.
Yes.
And the problem with announcing it is that then you have 10 people come over with iPhones with flashes.
In front of the photographer because they're like, "Oh, the
Sometimes.
photographer's standing there. That must be a good spot."
Just let me get mine first. Okay.
Yeah.
Um
So I think that's good if
so I
you
mention it.
if everyone's seated and then you walk into the room.
Yep.
I really like it. You don't have to take my advice.
Yeah, it's very elegant and all
I
eyes
just
are
really
on
like
you.
it.
Yeah.
I really like it. And then at some point, catering staff can swiftly come in and remove it, and nobody even notices. And it's more, I think, if you have your cake displayed, kind of like in the center of the dance floor, or like in front of the head table or something like that, it's kind of a showpiece, and people will walk in and they'll be like, "Oh, like this is what we're eating later."
Yeah. Definitely.
I don't know. I
For
really
sure.
like it. I'm going to push it more.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I really want to talk about your husband's woodworking and
Yes,
how
I would love
often
to.
does his craftsmanship bleed
Yes,
into
that was such a fun question that you sent me.
Yay!
I love that. So he
because
discovered
I love, and I want you to talk
Yes,
about your husband.
yes. So my husband is I guess he has his MBA, but he also coached soccer for a long time. He loves soccer. But he discovered his love for woodworking a few years ago. I actually was just I was wanting him to make me a few things I saw on Pinterest. I wanted this corner desk that kind of looked like one from IKEA. He kind of made a different design. And then when our son was born, he built those pallet shelves that were super popular. And so, he had no really intention of making a small business, but I think I just had posted a few of the pictures of what he had made me, and people were like, "Oh, that's so cute. I want one," and it just kind of happened. And he had just this little Etsy shop and loves it. But I used his farm table. He made us
Yes.
a outdoor farm table, and I've used it now for 2 styled shoots, which is super fun. Yeah, and he always gets roped into helping with styled shoots, which bless his heart, it's like probably the most awful thing to help set up because it takes so long and it's
Can you
labor
move
intensive.
this
Yes.
much
Can
this
you-
way?
Yeah, just please, again, please. No, but he's awesome. It's very sweet. I've kind of a long list of things that I want him to make for me. But no, it's been really fun. He's been able to ship things like across both coasts. He gets a lot of orders from the coast, which I think is so funny. East Coast and West Coast. Even like farm tables. I've kind of helped him assemble like a little instruction sheet for some of the smaller things like nightstands for people to put together. But it's been fun. Yeah. So it's super fun to kind of
super cool.
work together. Yeah.
And where can listeners find you online?
Yes. So I have a website. It's just bellanotephoto.com.
Notte.
Yes. And that's actually Italian for beautiful night. If you remember the song from Lady and the Tramp, that's actually where I got that. It's one of my favorite little moments. And yes, Lady and the Tramp. Yes, I'm on Instagram just at bellanotephoto. And honestly, I post on Facebook sometimes, but I would say Instagram is almost daily. So that's kind of the best place to find me right now. And yeah, so.
And I feel like there was one Friday introduction post that you wrote. It was like baby number 2 announcement.
Yes.
And you said something like social media has even more power than I thought. Will you just touch on that
Of
a little
course.
bit? Because I feel like social media can be such a tool for brides and grooms.
Yes. So it's been really interesting, having my own business and learning, kind of observing what other entrepreneurs do on social media. But I know it probably seems like this isn't true because I've been talking so much, but when I'm one-on-one with someone, I'm very bubbly, very, engaged, and I love talking to brides and grooms. I love wedding days, the fast pace, but I am very introverted. I also am, I think, a pretty private person. And so for a while, it was pretty hard for me to figure out how, I see all these awesome, not even just photographers, entrepreneurs sharing these really private things about themselves on their accounts, but people really connect with them and they love it and it helps them feel they know the person better. And so I actually really pushed myself this year to do just simple Friday introduction posts on my Instagram. And I tried to really plug myself into Instagram and make sure I was, representing my brand and kind of communicating with maybe potential brides and grooms. And I got a comment from a bride whose wedding I shot in September. And I wrote it down here. She just said, "I personally loved getting to know you over social media. It helped me feel comfortable during the photos. You were no longer a photographer, but felt like a friend who was our photographer." And so that's kind of what I was mentioning in the post that you are talking about, Josie.
Right.
But then I posted about that and how it was kind of hard for me to become a little bit more vulnerable, also because of the birth of my son and kind of wanting to keep him and any other kids we would have maybe off social media. But this bride wrote, "I love this so much and love working with you. I cannot wait to get to know you even more. This Insta community is so amazing and I love how it connects us together, makes us feel less alone, and allows us to make friends with like-minded people." And so I thought, that is really important. I'm really glad she said that, and I just would not have thought that. And so I am going to continue doing that. Another funny thing is that, that best 9 photos.
Yeah.
So I plugged in my Instagram handle to find my best 9. And I kind of made a face because 7 out of 9 of my photos were of me or my family. And I thought, well, this is weird. But
it's so true.
Right. Because in those posts, those Friday introduction posts, I would share something, a little bit more specific or funny or quirky or, something just not so run of the mill. I'm a wedding photographer, but it gets a little bit boring to just post wedding photos all the time and say, so cute,
Not for me.
Well, yes, thank you. So I thought, I can definitely figure out a way to still be myself. And, I'm introverted. I like to be private with my kids, but I can talk about them. I don't have to, put 10 photos of them up every day.
Right.
I can talk about what I love to do that's specific, and it's just a little bit more engaging, I think. And, of course, I would love to have the time to meet with every single bride that's interested in maybe booking me in person, but maybe Instagram is a really
great tool.
Good way, right? A great tool for that. So
I think that is great, and I'm super excited for listeners to go check you out because I love reading your posts and following you. And obviously that's how we connected. I end every episode with a high five.
Oh, awesome.
So thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. Woo!
So that'll be the end of the audio, but for YouTubers, there's more afters. And so I just wanted to bring up that yesterday I do that Tuesdays Together networking group.
Oh, yes.
And we were talking about how to, this month was social media. So we're talking about how to navigate that with your business. And
Okay.
like, there's kind of two sides to it, right? Like, put everything on, like, whatever, I'm an open book.
Right.
And then there's two moms in the group, babies. And they were like, I don't really want.
Was Janine there?
Janine was
I
there.
saw
Yeah.
Janine.
Yeah.
In your
And-
photo.
yeah. Yes. And then I knew you would know Janine. And so then there was the other side of it saying like, I want to respect my child's privacy. And we don't know what that's going to look like in the future, having like this digital footprint at such a young age, because it doesn't exist for the current mom generation.
I know.
And I don't share. I mean, I say little things about my husband, but I don't say a lot of stuff. Like, I was kind of creating, and now it's going to be on YouTube, but I was creating a post. I scheduled out all my quarter
Yeah,
for Instagram and Facebook. And my husband and I often, when we're sleeping, we hold hands. And
Oh.
I like wanted to write that, but then I was like, no, I feel like that's too personal. I mean, now it's on
I
YouTube,
know.
but I feel like it's just too personal of a thing to put down in writing.
I know.
And that's the same way I feel about swearing, right? Like if I'm talking in person with a client, I swear up a storm unless they're like, we're super religious. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to respect that and try not to say God damn it so much. But I'm trying. But, when you type something, I feel like it just has such permanency. Or when it's a photo of something, and that's how we feel about photos too, right? Like, well, that's my bad side. That's how I've been with my curly hair. Like, whatever, I'm just going to embrace it.
Right.
Like, I feel more comfortable on screen or in front of people with straight hair, but this is me and this is how I look on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So
Do you know who Jasmine Star is?
Yes.
So I heard her. I think I was talking to my husband once, and I was talking about her and somebody else, maybe not my husband, but I was like, I just know all these things about her, and they were like, well, what do you know? And I was like, well, her dog's name is Polo, and JD is her assistant, and like California and yoga and books and things, and they were like, well, that you do know a lot about her, but like
it's
I don't
not
know,
really anything personal,
right?
Like super
it's like
personal
themes.
Yes.
And she has shared about like her mom's, I believe she had cancer.
Yeah.
And she shares quotes from her dad a lot, and I love that. But I think her and Jenna Kutcher are, I think, two of the best about it. And Jenna Kutcher shares, I would say, much more vulnerable than Jasmine. But again, it's like you can do this.
Right.
In a strategic way. And like when you do have kids or whatever you want to be protective of, your husband, anything, you can be strategic about it and not divulge.
I know.
But it's
I
tricky.
want my clients to know me.
I know.
It's just if you want to know my husband, like you're probably never going to meet him or see him in person.
Yeah.
But like I just have to tell the stories in person.
Right.
I don't want to, that's like saved for my clients.
Yeah.
Maybe that's like a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Like
I don't mind
that's the
telling
extra
them.
experience that you get.
Right.
Is my own love story. And
Right.
then there's just like a general one. Like, I love my husband, and if I could sew our faces together, I would.
Yeah.
That'd be weird.
Yeah.
But I really want to do it.
Not weird.
Yay, you get it.
Yes.
Oh, shut up, Ian. Okay, I think we're all set.
Hooray.